Okay, students. We are going to do chapter 10 today. Just a reminder, if you haven't completed your midterm, which was prior, you still have access to complete your midterm. I had some students that had some issues, so I'll be able to reset your exam and have you retake it if you have any issues because you maybe got logged out during the exam. Also, your project, when we began your project, so now you have access to begin your research project, which I gave you we're in week 9, so I gave you week 7 to start working on that, to give you some time to sort of look at it, chew on it, maybe answer some questions. Week 8, which was last week, was the midterm. Now we're starting back again with our normally scheduled classes. So right now we're doing week 9. We're in week 9. Okay. So if you haven't already done so, make sure to catch up on your discussion boards, your Connect assignments. You have your project that started, your research project. I went over it. And if you look at the announcements on Brightspace, you'll see I posted videos, how to do the project portion, and which comes a little later, how to also do the presentation portion. The presentation is not going to be in groups, it's going to be individual. So usually it's done groups. You'll be doing your own individual presentations. That'll start a little later in the semester, maybe another week or 2 weeks. You will see in the weekly content when to begin. It's on the syllabus too, when to begin your presentation. So make sure you have that on the wraps. If you're struggling if there's a lot of work and you're struggling, my recommendation, make sure you have the online textbook. You spend some time to study and review the definitions in the textbook before you take the midterm. Just really spend time doing well in the midterm. And the project. The project is worth more points than the SimNet, which is the Excel. So if you have to pick and choose what to knock out first, I would work on the project. You could always do SimNet and catch up on SimNet later on. Hopefully that gives you some clarity. So if you have questions, send me an email. But we're going to work on week 10, chapter 10. You see, week 9, chapter 10, motivating employees. So this week is more revolved around management theory, being a manager. How do you manage employees? What are the different theories of management? So if you see here chapter contents, this would sort of be like, what do I need to know for my final exam? Because this is now past the midterm. So everything we're learning up to this point is final exam material. So if you look at the chapter contents, each of these areas, you should be able to answer them, or at least be able to get the information regarding it. So I had a little bit of a stutter or a hiccup on my Zoom here. It looks like I'm having some sort of stuttering with my connection. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. Am I going in and out? So chapter contents here is essentially what you need to know for the exam, right? So what's the value of motivation? The definitions. Knowing these definitions, a really easy way to study is, what are these definitions? And if you can access the definitions and know the definitions, then, you'll be fine on the exam. For most of the chapters, if you look at the chapter contents here and you find those answers, you'll be okay. If you look at your textbook, you'll see the definitions on the side of each examples, and that's usually what you need to know for the exam. So let's sort of begin. So motivation, what keeps workers happy, is sort of understanding the science and the management theory of their satisfaction. Some people work because uh, they do a job because they like the type of work they do, right? Some people work hard because of the money they make and what they could do with the money. Some people are motivated by different things. Generally speaking, people are more motivated emotionally by the emotional work they do versus necessarily purely financial. But people say that, but at the end of the day, we do know that uh, your your financial benefit ties into your lifestyle, right? What you could buy, what type of life you can live, what type of benefits you can afford, especially in the US. Maybe a medical treatment you need isn't covered by your insurance. Medication you need isn't covered, or maybe it's expensive. You need money, right? So we could talk about motivation, but everyone's motivation is unique and different. This is sort of try to compartmentalize what may be your motivation, why you feel a certain way. Uh, it's like textbook. So they break it down to factors: intrinsic rewards, extrinsic rewards, because everyone's different. We don't know what's motivating you. So intrinsic is the personal satisfaction you feel when you perform a goal. So, for example, maybe someone is a social worker, right? They're a teacher in the Midwest somewhere where they're not getting paid a whole lot of money to teach classes. Maybe they do homeless outreach. They're doing a job that may not pay as much, but they love the work. They're motivated through intrinsic rewards. Extrinsic rewards, XEX is, outside, intrinsic, inside, right? So intrinsic is personal, inside, extrinsic is outside motivating rewards. So money, opportunity. Some people start businesses because they want to make money, right? Usually when someone's has pride in their performance, they like what they do, and they're motivated extrinsically, those are usually the high performers because there's two factors of what's motivating them. A lot of people take jobs not because of intrinsic, they take jobs because they need a job. It's a job, right? So you think about that. Most of your civil services come from the fact that people just want safety and security in their work. They have a pension, a social security, they have a stable job, and that is why they're happy to do the work. I do think people should have a sense of accomplishment and achievement in the work they do. I think that's important as well. As far as your textbook is concerned, as far as your test is concerned, these are the two systems that motivate people. So Frederick Taylor is the father of scientific management. He was trying to study to find the most efficient way to sort of understand people and being able to teach people techniques. He was focused on productivity, sort of like the science of uh, management. Understanding. You have employees, what makes them tick, right? How can I get them to learn new things? So he broke it down into three elements to increase productivity: time, methods of work, rules of work. Okay, so we talk about the time motion study, and and this is maybe more like a factory job or something that requires, motor skills, fine motor skills, gross motor skills in relationship to achieving a goal for the employer. And he went over these principle of motion economy, that every job can be broken down into a series of elementary motions. So, for example, if you're on an assembly line and you're doing a job, you might be doing the same motion over and over. and sort of breaking down the task, right? If you're sitting in front of a computer doing office work, how would you break that down, right? Maybe what you're clicking on, what you're doing, and then you could factor that into teaching techniques, studying how to improve motivation or improve efficacy. So the science of all that. So Elton Mayo and Hawthorne studies. So you want to know the studies, get a basic idea of what the study is. So this is about light conditions. This is actually a really interesting study. If you're working under natural light, well-lit rooms, people work better. People are happier. People are more motivated. If you're working in a dark room with artificial light, people don't work as well. That's pretty much what it is. So if you think about Elton Mayo and the Hawthorne study, Hawthorne affect the tendency for people to act differently when they're being studied. And Elton Mayo, you think about light, the research of how different lighting affects their ability to work, their motivation. Okay, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I'll just click over here, is sort of this pyramid structure that deals with what people need to sort of feel complete. And they need these sort of, and this, they need these things in their life. And the pyramid represents low to high. So the most important things are the base level. So they need that more. And then the things that come up are built on the bottom level. So if you have employees and you're trying to motivate them, are they meeting these needs, right? So are they meeting their psychological needs, their safety needs, their social needs? If your employees are not meeting these areas, the basic areas, you are less likely to possibly have less motivated employees, lower retention. So this is sort of like his founding research on people's needs in relationship to what motivates them, right? So people are going to be motivated more by psychological needs first, then safety needs. You know, you could switch the two if you wanted to and say that, if you lived in a forest in the wild, your safety and well-being may be first. But I was saying to today's society, people live in cushy homes and have first world amenities, and a lot of times they're absolutely miserable because their psychological needs aren't being met. So, and there's overlap here. Your social needs relate to your psychological needs, and so on and so forth. So, understanding the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is self-actualization a part of it? Is esteem a part of it? Definitely something you'd see on the test. And I'd say it's important to understand as well. Herzberg's motivating factors. So this is all research on human resource and human management studies, work motivation studies. That's what all this is about. So he asked, what creates enthusiasm for workers and makes them work to their full potential? He found job content factors were most important to workers, them being happy, them feeling satisfied. So the emotional side of things, the intrinsic factors, he found were more important firstly than the extrinsic factors, which was sort of pay scale reward, extrinsic rewards. So he found that if people were happy, they were motivated. If they're not happy, they're not motivated. So happy employees played a much bigger role. Happy environment plays a much bigger role. Non-toxic work culture plays a much bigger role than pay. I've seen it before. People they're working in a job. Some people are different. Some people can I get paid more. They'll go somewhere else. So it doesn't apply to everyone, but generally, motivating factors for productivity is more about the individuals feeling satisfied with the work they're doing. Okay. So he goes over motivating factors and hygiene factors. He calls hygiene factors, right? So the work itself, achievement, recognition, responsibility, growth, and advancement are motivators. So if you have employees and you want to motivate them, these are ways to do it. The hygiene factor is things that can cause dissatisfaction, and that changing them can have very little motivating effect. And you can see the hygiene factors all very sort of policy, administration, supervision, things of that sort. So these had less. I do think these are important, by the way. The hygiene factors are important because the hygiene factors can actually affect the motivating factors, right? So if you want to feel happy about your work, but you don't like your boss because he's affecting your ability to work, if your work conditions and the company policy is affecting your ability to be recognized or to have responsibility, there's cross overlap. So from a pure standpoint, he's saying that the hygiene factors are less important than the individual feeling these sort of motivating factors, right? They feel the work is the achievements there. Because you could be doing a job there where you have very little support and your supervision and everything is terrible, but you're really into the work. You feel good about the work. You like what you do. That's going to keep you there. So that's what he's saying, that these are the most important motivators. And this is true for all situations. So here is a comparison of the hierarchy of needs and Herzberg's theory of factors, right? So they're sort of doing a comparison between motivation and hygiene and sort of relating them against each other, right? Where Maslow puts the self-actualization and esteem at the top of the hierarchy of needs, but is the most important as far as what Herzberg found work-wise in the workplace. And I would say that Maslow's hierarchy of needs pertains more so not just in a work factor, but a human factor. So it goes beyond your work. So if your psychological needs and safety needs aren't being met, it can interfere with your ability to feel your social relationships, your esteem relationships, your self-actualization relationships. So we sort of look at both charts in relationship to the overall environment and policies, procedures, and culture of the workplace, and how you can sort of vet the employee experience and motivation against these two measurements. So this is a good chart. This is a good chart to think about, especially as a manager. Middle manager, upper manager, things of that sort. Okay, so it's the XY theory. So the different theories, okay, these are just different theories. XY, he generally, managers' attitudes fall into one of two theories. So theory X is that workers don't like to work. You got to force them, fear and punishment. Theory X is more Machiavelli. Some managers are like that. And the reason why they're like that is because sometimes employees take advantage of your niceness, right? You give them an inch, they take a mile. You might see sometimes people take theory X because it keeps people in line. Theory Y, people like to work. You believe people like to work as a part of life. Workers seek goals which they're committed to. Theory Y, as you see, falls more into the category of the prior theory that we just looked at, which was Herzberg, right? The things he researched, he found are more theory Y. But you'll find sometimes people use theory X in their practitioner because it's effective at times. So my personal 2 cents, and I'll be very blunt about it. Some people you got to do theory X with. Some people they work better with theory Y. It's more of an individual thing. You know, you give people theory Y, they walk all over you. You know, yeah, they like to work as part of their life. You give people too much of something and they take advantage of it. Some people aren't like that. You give them too much of something, or you give them more responsibility, or you help them more, and they really pay it back great with you. it depends on the type of work, the individual. I think it's up to the manager to sort of figure out a balance between both of them. Okay. So there's more about theory wise, steps to empowering, how you can empower your employees. And then also theory Z, which is Ochi. I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly. Cultural differences. This is looking at the US versus Japan. Type J, Japan, are committed to organization of the group. Type A is more focused on the individual. So I do think that the culture you're in plays a big role. You as an individual plays a big role. Your belief system plays a big role. You know, it affects how your brain is hardwired to accept and feel things based upon your culture, and that impacts your sense of motivation, your value, your esteem, your needs, your wants, your desires. Identifying the culture could definitely help you figure out more about what works with this, or maybe there's something wrong culturally that people are used to because of their culture, but they're deep down inside as human beings, they're just not happy about it. So this is sort of like a blend of American and Japanese management approach, A, Z, and J, and it's going over these different sort of approaches because the Japanese, you know, they look at Toyota, how the quality control, how effective and efficient it is. So they're looking at these different management systems to see what works best. American style might not work so good with Japanese. Japanese style not working so good with Americans, but maybe there's something to learn from both styles. So that's what this is talking about. Also comparison of X, Y, and Z theories. So another theory, goal setting theory, the idea that setting ambitious but attainable goals can motivate workers, improve performance if the goals are accepted, accompanied by feedback and facilitated by organizational conditions. That means if you're doing work, having goals to achieve helps focus the group and focus the individual on working on a task. If I don't set a goal for you, you just kind of meander. You don't know what you should be striving for. My issue with goals is when the goals are not attainable. Because then you're demotivated to obtain a goal if you can't obtain it. If I say you need to run 10,000 miles, if you can't run 10,000 miles, you're like, well, I can't achieve that goal. Another person might start running rigorously and try to train themselves. It is a personality issue too. Some people, you know, they like to be driven, to be challenged, but that's because they have the structure and support and the belief system that they can do it. If you're just giving your employee a ridiculous goal and just saying, "This is what I want," you're not motivating anybody. All right. If anything, you're going to lose your employees and they're going to look elsewhere. There has to be some sort of structure, support, plan to achieve a goal. All right. So here's the goal. Here's how we're going to get it. Here's what you need to do. Here's how we're going to support you. Right. Here's how we're going to figure it out. That's how you achieve a goal. All right. Well, let's work together and do it. And let's get the reward when we do it. So management by MBO involves a cycle of discussion. There's levels of management, and sometimes different levels of management have less or more impact or ability in terms of what they can and can't do. I've seen some stuff in terms of employees and just how companies and large scale companies and corporations handle things. And you know, as far as you being a student and the definition, MBO, management by objective, involves a cycle of decisions. It's a process of evaluating the objectives of middle managers, supervisors, and employees. So it's sort of goal setting, setting structure, methods, evaluation processes. I would almost say it's from a management standpoint, it's operational. It's sort of the management operational process and cycle of all the levels of hierarchy. So for example, hiring and firing and evaluating employees. What is the day and life of a middle level manager? What are they doing? What are their objectives? What are their goals? What should they be doing? What's their workflow? How should we review them? How should they be reviewing others? That is the whole structure process, right? Um, I don't want to say it's common sense, but it's good to map it out, because sometimes when you map it out, it's not that common in sense. When you map it out and you think about it, you can then plug in a manager and they can start meeting the objectives and goals of the company, because you have this sort of structure set up. Management by objectives. So I would say this is important from upper level management, middle level management, understanding MBO. I feel like it's common sense, but it's not. It's really not common sense, because the industry can really affect and change what needs to be done with that, the process. Expectancy theory: the amount of effort employees exert on a specific task depends on their expectations of the outcome, which is what I just said earlier about setting a goal and whether or not you believe you can accept that goal or achieve that goal. The expectations, right? Can I accomplish this task? What are my rewards? Is the rewards worth the effort? I used to work for a bank, and this was during the recession of 2008. And they would set these goals because the banks lost tons of money back during 2008, like tons of money, because of the financial crisis. So they started saying these goals, and none of it was realistic. None of it would make any sense. None of it was attainable, because they're panicking. What do we do? They wanted to fire people to cut costs. They wanted to lay off people. They wanted to justify from an HR standpoint the layoffs. So they started managing people out, and sometimes they use these sort of structures in the inverse to achieve the goals of the company through policy, protecting them. So I'm going to set a goal for you to hit. If you can't hit that goal, I'm going to have to write you up and let you go. And the goal could be ridiculous. You can't hit that goal, right? So the expectancy theory is sort of like, let's get real, guys. Is the employee's going to ask these questions? And this is how you fire back. It's like, well, what's the reality of me expecting to achieve this, and the support structure, right? And then I could blow smoke up your what, and that's what it is. But logically, if you're trying to create a successful organization, one that retains talent, creates talent, a leader in your industry, then you need to think about the expectancy theory, right? You need to think about, my employees are thinking about this when we set goals and objectives. If you can't sit in the employee's shoes and do what you're asking them to do and understand how to do it and achieve it, you can't ask them to do the same. You can't, right? It's like, well, make it happen. How? How are you going to make it happen? Do you know how to make it happen? Can you make it happen? Because if you can't, then you can't ask it. You can ask it, but the employee's going to say, how do I do this, right? So I don't have to understand how you do it. I could just know how it needs to be done, right? If I ask a kinesiologist to stretch me out, or ask a surgeon to do surgery on me, I don't have to know surgery, but I do know I need a surgeon, right? A doctor can diagnose an issue, blood work, a lab exam, diagnosis. You need to see a surgeon, you need to do surgery. That's all process. I just discussed the process of what needs to happen. Boom, 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 boom. Right? Let's get a surgeon. Let's get a doctor. Let's get a lab to do the blood work. Right? I don't have to be a surgeon, but I know the process. This is with a task. So there's a reality where you expect your employees to do something. Can you do it? I'm going to tell you, a lot of times managers can't do what they want their employees to do. They don't know how. Some do. The good ones do. The guys that were there, the gals that were there grinding out, they have the experience. They know what to do. They're the better managers. They're the ones that solve the problems. They're the ones that work better with the employees. If you're so high up in the air, you have no idea what's going on down below. It shows and reflects on the entire organizational structure. And there's no way around that because you become dislocated and disillusioned from the truth of what is on the ground floor because you're not there. So I think the expectancy theory kind of grounds you that reality of, what, can we do this? How? So to me, that's an important theory. So this is sort of the process. You can sit in a management boardroom, high level, mid level, low level, and you could pull out this theory and say, all right, let's use this theory, you know, at every level, the from the cashier level up with every single task, organizational structure and function. You could be like, can we do this? Is it worth it? Are they motivated? And then in between the yes, you can sort of look at process, structure, functionality, management. So you can integrate it into your MBO. But I guess all those Fortune 500 companies didn't take Business 100, 104 to learn about this, right? Easier said than done, I suppose, I should say. And then let's be realistic. And people are people. Employees sometimes they're not the employee you want to hire. It's just the real world. Someone takes a job because they need to pay their bills. They're not motivated. They don't want to be there. They have different moral objectives, cultural objectives. They can have psychological issues you don't know. So it's not always easy for the employer to do what they have to do. So the expectancy is more about the Nadler and Lawler's 5 steps to improve employee performance. Determine the rewards of the employee value, determine employees what reward they value, their standard of performance, so on and so forth. A lot of this is performative. It's designed to get a performative response for motivation. But the way I'm looking at it is more of what are you, the manager or the company, doing to sort of create the environment or structure to motivate, right? Which leads back to the rewards. Because if we look at Herzberg, if the reward is, I like what I do, I feel motivated because this is good work. I feel happy to perform because of what I'm performing. A lot of that's going to be based upon the performance, right? The structure, the looking at their task, and can they do the task? Are they happy to do the task? Is it rewarding? So there's all these little pieces that we just went over. They all tie into each other in terms of not having a dysfunctional workplace. I think we've all been there. Equity theory, the idea that employees try to maintain equity between inputs and outputs. It depends on the individual. Some people are workhorses, some people aren't. They need different things. Putting theory into action, job enrichment. So these are sort of definitions based upon what you're doing to do the things to get the employee motivated, right? Apply open communication in self-managed teams. And communication is very important. Recognizing someone did a good job, however you recognize that. Motivating employees across the globe, cultural differences, like the X, Y, and Z. They talk about high context and low context. High context culture requires relationships, group trust before performance. Low context believes relationship building distracts from tasks. It's a cultural aspect of it, right? So you need to be culturally fluid and understanding about that. So baby boomers are going to be different than Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, Gen Z. They're going to be motivated different, right? This is all very stereotypical, by the way. This super stereotypical generalization there. Sometimes you need to talk to the people to understand the generation, to understand what they feel. So they talk about motivating X, motivating millennials, what they are, who they are, characteristics. This is good though, because this is very contemporary. You don't always see this in textbooks. So I'm not glossing over it, but it's good to read, right? What motivates Gen Z is different than what might motivate Gen X and so on and so forth. But to be honest with you, people are people, right? Maybe they might have a different cultural view, more liberal minded or less liberal minded, but those same basic motivational principles and philosophies that we reviewed earlier, they all still apply. Okay, so that is our chapter for today. We will be having class again the same time next week. If you have any questions, send me an email. And everyone have a good rest of your early afternoon.